Hello and welcome to another episode of Let Loose with Moose. Today I have Schizo here with me. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Did I get your name right? I hope
Yeah,
I did.
yeah, people have called me Schizo, whichever. Schizo. I'll respond to both.
All right, nice, nice.
It's a
Yeah, I'm
play
good.
off of schizophrenia, so it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of a
All right, yeah,
whichever works.
nice. Okay, I'm very good, hun. Hope you're having a good weekend. We are doing this on a Saturday,
Yep. Nice little Saturday morning,
right?
little Saturday
So
morning
it's a
pod.
Saturday night for me here. All right, so maybe we can start off with like a self-introduction of yourself and a bit of a background as well.
So, like I said, my name is Schizo, whatever. I've been in crypto since like late 2017. Um, so way longer than it is. Like it feels way longer than it is. But I've only had this account for like maybe a year or so. Um, my my personal Twitter ended up becoming so inundated with like me following crypto stuff that at some point I was just like, nobody that follows me gives a crap about this. So then I made my own account to just kind of have an outlet to speak about the stuff that I'm interested in, because like where I live, like nobody gives a shit, bro. Like I'm just kind of a crazy person spouting about internet monies. So it was nice to make a Twitter account and actually have people like think, the same way that I do about this stuff. Um, but yeah, I just do this. I'm almost 30, got a 11-month-old son, wife. So just living the American dream.
Nice, right. I saw your photo of your kid. It's very cute.
Thank you. Yeah,
Right.
he's the kid had like no teeth, and then all of a sudden he's got like 13 teeth. So he just looks like a weird demented gremlin when he smiles sometimes, like in a cute way, right? Like he's just got like jagged teeth everywhere. But
Such a
uh
funny description.
yeah. Yeah, he's mine though. He's a good kid.
Right, right. So like you said you started in 2017, right? Like so was it like
Yep.
Bitcoin at the beginning? You bought Bitcoin?
So man, ironically I don't think I did. I The funny bit is, so it was around like September-ish, October maybe. Excuse me. And I honestly, I couldn't even tell you what brought me into it. I think because I was already, before I knew about crypto, like I was already interested in investing and stuff. Like I liked
Mm-hmm.
keeping watch lists of companies, and somehow stumbled upon crypto. And to be honest, my memory's so shot I couldn't tell you how. But I got really big, and this is so dumb, into Litecoin.
Oh.
Um, yeah, buddy. So it was the way I manned it, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I was like, oh, this is cheaper than Bitcoin. It's definitely going to reach parity at some point.
Oh.
So like, I think at the time Bitcoin was like, and I think it was like 3K or something, 4K, and some chart is just going to call me out on that, but
That's fine.
whatever it was fairly low, or it was
Mm-hmm.
just starting its run up or something, maybe 7K. And I was like, I'm going to get here. It's definitely going to happen. And I remember having like one Litecoin and begging, or like a couple Litecoins, I guess, because I don't think it was very expensive, and begging my mom to give me an advance on my my paycheck from work so I could buy like another $1,000 worth of Litecoin, because I was so sure that it was going to go up. And I remember being so sure because I was following this Twitter account and it was one of those, like, the ones where they pick a certain coin, all they do is
Uh-huh.
shill that coin. They're like
Right.
the market cap of, so it was that, but for Litecoin, it's like Litecoin girl or something.
Shit.
And I was like, holy shit, she's so smart. This is good. This is definitely going to happen. And it didn't, obviously. And I think and I didn't end up getting the money from my mom. Thank God. She was smart enough to go, no, you're
Luckily,
not
right?
doing that. Yeah, she's like, no, this is not happening. And I think I ended up selling Litecoin for some other altcoins and dove in and stuff. But ironically, I was never like the first coin I was into was like Bitcoin or ETH, because I think at the time ETH was still kind of like iffy, right? Like people weren't
Mm-hmm.
sure if it was actually going to work,
Mm-hmm.
if they were actually going to be able to do all of it.
Right. And you thought that
And
Litecoin would work.
yeah, yeah. That's probably the dumbest thing you'll hear from me today, but yeah,
Nah, it's fine.
I'll have you know that I have not touched that piece of shit since then, unless it was to trade and short it. But otherwise, yeah, I've not touched Litecoin since.
Yeah, but I think it's always very interesting to hear how people get started into crypto. I always enjoy like this part of listening, or what was your first coin, like first project, kind of stuff, right?
Right, because if you didn't choose Bitcoin or ETH, because if you did, like obviously you're some kind of genius or you were a drug addict or something, because that was the only real ways you got into Bitcoin and ETH so early, or well, Bitcoin I guess. But yeah, otherwise you just kind of like, I mean, we all started off in the same way, like we were all idiots, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what we're doing, and
I
like
still am.
you see newbies today and people, well, shit, same.
Mm-hmm.
Please, my IQ is 76, but
Right, right.
yeah, it is kind of interesting to see how people start this because it's almost always kind of the same depending on the time period, right? You're like if you're like
Yep,
a 2020 newbie, then you were probably like into DeFi Summer or whatever, like the Ohm and Wonderland and
yep,
all that stuff.
yep, yep. That was me,
So
I
yeah,
guess. Yeah,
hey,
but
been there, done
right. Did you stay all the way like in since 2017 until now, or like after the
that.
Litecoin
Yeah.
thing, and then you pulled away for a
So
bit?
I didn't actually ever take a break, surprisingly enough. What I ended up doing is finding, well, I think like the first year or so I was on my own with it. Like friends didn't really care, and there wasn't anybody really local that it made sense to. Um, but at that same time, I had always wanted to do trading and be a trader. Like I really worked hard at it. I did a lot of videos, um, read a lot of books and stuff about it, and
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of did that at the same time instead of doing more on the investing side portion of crypto. It was more the trading side for like a year or so. Um, and then I ended up there was a local group around here, and they had like get-togethers, like meetings, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! Like, I'm gonna go to these and meet some people." And it was like 7 dudes in a room, and just talking about like Bitcoin price action and ETH and stuff. And so and they had like a consulting group, so like we were trying to be consultants for like people around the area about crypto, and like
Wow.
nobody really cared, right? Like back then, like it was so nascent and so soon, like no one cared. Um, so went from that and then invested heavily more into 2018, and then I was in a bunch of random stuff, bro. Like you ever heard of Tomo Chain?
Nope, not me.
Right. Right. It's still around, I think. It was like they called it like the Vietnamese like Ethereum. I was one of those
Oh,
guys. Like that if you like gave me a different nationality or different like area and then you put Ethereum after it, I probably invested in it.
shit.
Because I was like, oh yeah, no, everybody's going to be a competitor to ETH. Like this is easy. So like Icon, One Chain, there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, oh my god, yes.
Right.
And none of those worked out. So
Usually
I ended up,
that's how it end up, right? Yeah.
yeah, right. So I think I ended up, walking back at the time was like, $7,000-8,000 was pretty large for me, and then walked all that back to like I don't even know if it was at 1,000, to be honest. Like it just went down because I think in 2019, either the end of 2018 or early 2019 was another like bear market.
Yep.
Um, so it just kind of, yeah, it didn't necessarily deter me away from crypto, but I didn't have the amount to invest as much.
Mm-hmm.
So for like a year, I kept track of crypto, but wasn't as involved as I became later on. Like right before the COVID crash and leading up to that, I was again trading a lot more, and then
Mm-hmm.
around the COVID crash, I had like a fat long at like I ended up getting like 3,800 on Bitcoin,
Wow.
and rode that up a little bit. But like every fantastic bottom ticking story goes, sold way too soon.
Ah, shit.
Yeah,
It's
and
always a
then didn't
lesson
keep
to
it.
learn.
Yep, yep. And that was one of those where it was like let your winners run type lessons.
Uh-huh.
Um, Learned that afterwards, but yeah. So from then on, like I became a lot more full force, and then just the recent addition of me like doing threads and stuff. But I kind of went off trading for a while. I just like I could do the charting. I'm good at all that, but like the act of trading and like the mental like gymnastics you have to do when you're holding position is just something that I just don't have the time for.
Mm-hmm.
And I like I'll sell too soon, sell at the wrong time, or don't have the patience for it or whatever. But But yeah, so it really, if you're to ask how where did I get really thick into it, it was like the end of 2019 going forward.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that you can do like charts and all. So have you posted anything on that about your Twitter?
I think I did, like, if you were to really like scroll back like to the beginnings of this
Uh-huh.
Twitter, like you'll probably see me talking about how great UST was, and then like yeah, random charts.
Oh, that'll be a
Um,
topic for that later on, I guess.
oh yeah, well yeah,
UST.
I do it more in the Discord. All of us have we have like a little channel, and I'll just like put charts and stuff. Oh, that was my robot. Go away, robot. Cleaning the floor. Um, and I still do, but I don't really do it on Twitter because like that's just not. I just see the backlash of that being so dumb. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
don't have the energy to deal with people going, "Oh, you were wrong." It's like, yeah,
Ah,
it's like part of trading.
right.
Like you're never always right. Sometimes ideas just don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do. I learned it. I mean, I did it for 2-3 years, and it helps a lot with investing. I think and I think that a lot of people should at least have a base knowledge of support and resistance to a degree, because like you can have only so much fundamental knowledge of something and know that eventually it's going to go higher, but like you should
Yeah.
still try and get decent entries, you know what I'm saying, for the most part, instead of just buying into something and seeing it go down 15% instantaneously the next day. But yeah, no, it's in my arsenal. It's hanging around
Yeah.
in there.
I think a mix of both is good as well to help
Yeah,
you
very much so.
more of like timing, sort of timing your positions, like when to enter or not, even
Yeah, and
though
it
you
kind of
know
gives
it's
you like,
good.
yeah,
Go ahead.
and it gives you like a robotic way of thinking a little bit too. To make it to where you can farm and invest and stake and do all that stuff and earn yield over time, but if you're not taking little bits and pieces out, like you're not making a difference for yourself. So I think
Mm-hmm.
having the idea of like a resistance in mind, just to like shave some off every time it ticks against it or whatever, is a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. And for the DeFi part, do you remember like when you got in? What chain was it? Project? That'll be about
um
2020, I think.
yeah, I think I got into I actually think I got into DeFi a little earlier, but not with the same fervor that I do now. But I remember my first, actually, I do know my exact first one because I ended up looking back. Um, it was Pancake Swap
Ah,
when that like first became a thing, and they had the cake token, and they also had a syrup token. I don't know if anyone's gonna remember that. But they had like syrup pools, and so I was on BNB fairly
uh-huh.
heavy. So like I learned how to like, because back then, and I think they still have this now, but I don't think they use as much. They had like the BNB that you could use, like BNB chain, and they had like Binance Smart Chain, which were like two entirely separate things.
Oh, really?
But to get to one, you had to use the other, and it was weird. Um, so that was definitely like one of those like learning curves for DeFi where you can just tell that like it was too soon for normies, because like
Uh-huh.
that was difficult to learn. But yeah, it was the top three were like Pancake Swap, um, Badger, Badger DAO,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and Keeper DAO, so Rook. That was, I think, like my first three, and I think out of all of those, well, Pancake Swap's actually like super big.
Yeah.
Um, didn't hold on to any of that, and Keeper DAO I think is gone now. I think they're redeeming, like letting people redeem from the treasury, and then Badger's still around, but I think because I was at the point where Badger was like $80. That's about when I was in it, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, because I was farming it leading up to that, and I was like, ha ha ha, I'm a genius, and then it started to crumble, and I was like, oh no, I'm an idiot, and yeah, and but yeah, so that's kind of where, so like the very first like early ETH DeFi
Mm-hmm.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a little bit actually back then even of Cosmos. Like I had some Atom. I unironically staked Luna for like a year and a half and didn't realize it. So I ended up coming back to a nice little chunk of money there at some point. I think in ironically again right before Luna's run up. It was like I don't. It wasn't. it had started to run, but it didn't go nearly as far as it did. And
Right.
I sold some like right before the bump.
Oh,
But
nice.
but yeah, so I had some early stuff. I think Secret Network, Atom, Luna, Keeper DAO, Badger, and Pancake Swap. I think were
Ah,
like my first
nice.
introductions to DeFi.
Nice, nice. I didn't even know that Cosmos was out so early.
Yeah, so it was weird because I don't think at the time I really knew that Luna was like attached to Cosmos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because I used the old like dashboard wallet thing. It was like just a computer wallet. It wasn't even on the browser. It was like
Oh,
you actually like downloaded it to your computer and then ran it from there.
uh-huh.
Um, and but yeah, I think because back in the day, Cosmos and Atom, it was almost kind of a meme to a degree because I don't know, it didn't have the traction I think it does now. But back then, I mean, they were doing things that were way ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? Like they implemented stuff that I don't even think people really started talking about until Vitalik and Heath started doing it a couple years later. Wish I
Mm-hmm.
had way more um, conviction back then on it. But yeah, it was around. Atom is one of the oldest coins, besides like Bitcoin and all the ones that were
Yeah.
in like 2013 and stuff. But as far
Mm-hmm.
as like ones that are relevant now, like Atom's been around for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, nice. I remember because like when I first interacted, not interacted, when I first heard of like crypto and all, I did hear about stuff like the cake token, but I didn't understand what was going on at that point of time. So just reading from the group chats, but completely clueless at that point.
Yeah, it was definitely. People always say like crypto's the Wild Wild West now, but like it was the Wild Wild West back then. Like
Right, right.
so much just random shit just popped up out of the blue. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember how I came across some of that. I think it was just like, patrolling Twitter and just
Mm-hmm.
catching, wind of something. And I was like, oh, what's this? And then, seeing 3,000% APRs or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God. And then looking back, like that was just so small in comparison to what happened in like Fork Summer or whatever. But yeah,
Uh,
I mean, it's definitely interesting. Like I don't ever really get to talk about this stuff all that often, like what it was like, years ago.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it is kind of fun to see where it's come to now and how quickly it's like crypto itself has evolved as an industry from then to now. It's very, very cool to like feel like I've been a part of watching it happen
Yeah, the space moves so quickly here.
so fast, man.
Yeah,
It's hard to keep up.
right, exactly, right. And I mean, we heard enough about how you got started. Maybe let's get to a bit of a more recent topic of how you got started in like writing threads on Twitter.
Yeah. So it just kind of became a thing because, like I said, when I made the account, it was just to talk about it, right? Because like I didn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. The friends that were into crypto were just kind of passively into it and kind of got um, not turned off by it, but they didn't like the volatility, right? They were like, "Oh, you mean I can lose my entire deposit in like 2 months
Mm-hmm.
off a dump? Like I don't want to do that." So they just kind of like wrote it off, right? And anybody else just didn't seem to care. So when I went to Twitter and saw these people talking about it, I was like, that's awesome. So it really just started out as me wanting to speak it about the things that I thought were interesting. So like it wasn't even really like about getting reach or getting any sort of a following or whatever. It just
Mm-hmm.
was I just want to spew my bullshit into the ether and see if anybody, responds back. Um, and at the time, I think I did it a couple times or whatever, and then I saw the threaders were actually getting a lot of attention, and they were getting sponsored things and stuff, and I was like, well, that's cool. And I've always liked writing, written since I was a kid. Ironically, a published author in the loosest sense of the word, the
Ooh,
loosest sense. And by that I mean I was like 7 years old and I got put in a book.
wow.
So loosest sense. I think it was like a poem competition in our state, and I was one of the people that got into it or whatever. But
Ah,
so I
okay,
like
okay.
like writing, super fun, and I was like, well, I want to have some kind of niche, right? Like one thing I don't like doing is being part of a crowd. Like I just don't like doing the same things that everybody else does. I find that really boring, and it's just not who I am as a person. So I wrote about the only thing that I thought I had a relative knowledge about in comparison to people in crypto, which was psychology. So I have a degree in psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I worked in a psychiatric facility for like 4 or 5 years. So I felt like I had enough book knowledge and then hands-on experience to kind of take what I've learned about people and how they operate and then apply it to markets and crypto. So I think
Super
one of the
interesting.
first big threats. Right. Yeah. And I didn't really see a whole lot of people doing that. It was just like, oh, you know, farming, here's this token,
Mm-hmm.
or new chain, here's this token. It was never like anything tangible that I felt like everybody could get something from. And I think my first big thread was noticed by, I think, PhD, I think his name is PhD Steven. But he was super nice and he's like, yo, I'd really like to read more of these. And then that's where that kind of snowballed. And then ironically, I haven't really done much psych threads since then. I think I've done like
Uh-huh.
one or two, but that's where it kind of like kicked off. And I was like, like this is fun. Like I enjoy writing. And then I had a couple people say like, hey, your writing is really fun to read. Like it's different. It's interesting. You have your own way about doing things, which is, I feel like to a lot of people, it feels like a backhanded compliment. But to me, that's like super nice thing to say because that's all I want to be, right? It's just be me, but have people appreciate what I do because of that.
Right, right. By the way, you mentioned Stephen, like from DeFi Dojo, like the calculator guy.
Yes, yes, him. Yeah.
Ah, nice, nice.
Uh, yeah, I don't know how he stumbled upon me. I don't know if it was because I was one of those douchebags that like just tagged everybody in the blue moon, and he just happened. He was nice enough to notice, and I guess that's what happened. But yeah, him. Yeah, definitely that guy.
Nice.
He's super cool. He's been
Yeah,
very
super
nice
nice
on
guy.
anything that I put. Yes, very
Yeah.
nice guy.
Right, right. And I want to ask, actually, I wanted to ask like why the schizo or lunatic style of the way that you write your threads. So like, does it got to do with your degree or your work experience?
Yeah, so I think so. The schizo thing actually comes from, well, one, my favorite patients that I ever had to deal with were always the ones that were psychotic, because they were just so fun, right? Like they would, one of them had a full on conversation with me, like he was Abraham Lincoln, right?
Wow.
Like it's just like fun stuff because, and it's not necessarily fun to them because tragic experience and all that, but like
Uh-huh.
nobody really gets to witness that unless you have a family member or you've been in a facility or you've worked in a facility. So I always thought those were the most interesting people, and they were always the nicest after they got on meds, actually, obviously. Um, but so one day I was changing my gamer tag on like PlayStation or something, and I changed it to Schizo. And so then when I made a Twitter account, I was like, I'll just keep it going, I guess. Schizo
Uh-huh.
XBT, because everybody's cool and puts XBT in their name. And yeah, so but then with the lunacy style, that just kind of like it's just me writing how I talk in real life. Like I don't try to be like hyper professional with my writing. And that works for some people. Like I have friends that write real professionally and write
Uh-huh.
real just like just how they write, and that's fine. And
Yep.
a lot of times that works. But like I don't know. I think I would be bored by then of writing. So I wanted to write in a way that's going to make it interesting for me. And honestly, I just include jokes that make me laugh. So if it makes me laugh, I'm like, that worked. Don't really care if somebody else laughs as long as I did. I think it's funny.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
I just wanted to
cool.
do something different.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so
But
it's like
yeah,
just a unique style, I guess.
yeah, I try to, I guess, but like in the same sense, I don't. Like it's just kind of like I said, it is literally if you were to have a conversation with me about whatever topic I'm writing,
Mm-hmm.
that's just how I would do it. Like starting off my threads, I'm like, all right, fuckwads, like here we go. Like that's how I would do it anyways. So
Right.
I think it's just funny to do it. And then what's funnier to me is that like people think that's interesting and even pay me for it. Like that's what's hilarious. And
Yeah,
so
it's good.
I'm like, you tell me I can be stupid and funny and write about things I'm interested in and people like that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's your unique selling point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like just rude. Like it's like rude writing in a way. But
Yeah, in a sense.
yeah, but it's fun. It makes it to where like every time I do one, it's not I don't feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I can sit there and think about some weird wacky hook or what I'm going to call my friends when I tag them. Like, am I is it going to be something nice today? Am I going to compare them to a farm animal or like what I mean? So it's fun for me, and if it's fun for me, I feel like it translates to what's being written.
Right, right. All right. And I remember reading one of your threads about having an edge, and you mentioned that you are good at being early. So how do you be early?
I think part of it is that for a lot of the things I was early to, it was because I had a lot of time to do so. So I had a lot of time that I could to look around and see what needed to be in the market, right? Because 67% or some weird percentage of projects that release nowadays like won't do anything in a year or won't gain enough traction to do anything, which is always obviously the risky run. But I have what I think is like a really good way of curating who I think the smartest people are, at least to me. Like I try to like filter in my head, like in the past bear markets and stuff I've went through, like who was the intelligent one on Twitter, right? Like who made the most sense, who ended up being right on certain things. And so it's not even that necessarily like I'm super smart about anything, because if you ever talk to me, I'll tell you I'm not. But what I am good at is knowing who's better than me at every other facet of it, right? Like, so I have a passable knowledge of crypto, right? Just from being in it for as long as I have, but I'm not like a blockchain expert. I'm not a data analytics expert. I'm not any of these things that a lot of people are super smart at. But I feel like I'm good at finding who those people are and then aggregating that information for myself and then
Mm-hmm.
making a decision off of what's going to be good or not. So I think like some of my earlier plays was ironically Wonderland Time. I think I rode that up from like, I mean, almost from the start all the
Wow.
way up to like its high, and was making at some point was making like 2 grand a day from it, from the rebases and stuff,
There.
which is nuts. Like that's just stupid, which also goes to show like how crazy crypto was at the time.
Yeah.
But then most recently got into Grail at like 200, I think, like right around like 208, 210, I think was
Uh-huh.
my price point, and it's almost 3 grand now per.
Yep.
And that just I there's a guy, if you know who Small Cap Science is
Yep.
on Twitter, he had mentioned it in a podcast, I think, and I was like, and I was listening to their podcast like every day because when my son was born, I was just walking him around, like either outside in the stroller or whatever, and so I would put
Mm-hmm.
in earbuds and listen to podcasts to pass the time. And he mentioned something about it. I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, I'm gonna check that out, and it looked cool. And he was like, I think this is really going to be something. And I just threw a couple throwaway funds in there, and then it ended up those throwaway funds turning into like a pretty nice chunk.
Nice.
Um, so it's just about knowing, I think, what is unique to the market, and then having an early enough conviction to it. And it's not even about going like all in or whatever, right? Like just tossing some in
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how it goes. And you can usually tell when you're early on something because either A, no one's talking about it yet, or B, it starts to run really fast. And
Yep.
that's usually how you're in something, when it starts to run real fast and then it just keeps going. Like Rail just kept running, but I was locked into the position, right? I locked it for X Grail, so I just kind of like gained fees and whatever from
Mm-hmm.
it. But I think you just need to find something early. I feel like everybody just needs to know what their niche is in crypto. Like, are you good at following the right accounts? Are you good at TA? Are you good at fundamental research? Like, there's a guy on Twitter, Nagato, and he is like the fundamental god. And that's where I got a lot of my early Cosmos knowledge from him, because he was on it in like 2018 and stuff. Like, this dude
Wow.
knew things were going to be crazy then, and he's been right. Now, granted, that he'll even say like, yeah, I didn't even get to put money in this. I feel like such an idiot. But he would be on things at like 25 cents that are now like $25. You know what I mean? Like, he is just he would know. And so like I just would aggregate that knowledge for myself and look at it and go, okay, he's been right a lot of the time. So let's do my own research into, because I'm not the best at finding projects on my own, but I'll let other people find it for me, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever feel like I have to be the first in something, but I also don't want to be the last. So if I can get in between those and get as much, extract as much value as I can from the middle, that's a win for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I may not be the first in everything, but I still feel quote unquote earlier, and that's enough. Does
Yeah,
that
I
answer the
think
question?
yeah, I think I agree. So basically, like look for people who are good at spotting such stuff early and then kind of following them in a sense.
No way, yeah. So it's unless you're already like super good at that. Like if you have like an intense like knowledge of computers and software and stuff, and you're able to look at a project and go, dang, that's going to be really awesome. Good for
Yep.
you. That means you identified a niche that you're good at, that you can say like, I'm early on this because of my knowledge, right? So I think it's just having, if you already have that like level of knowledge to you, then cool. But if not, find people that are, right. Surround yourself with people that are better, even if that's
Mm-hmm.
virtually through Twitter and they have no idea that they've been like great for you or whatever. It's the same type of process. Now, granted, Do I ape everything everybody says? No. I still go and look and do my own thing, and a lot of times I still miss stuff. Like I've missed being early in a lot of things, and just like opportunity cost of being in crypto, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't get into everything you'd like to be in. But I think there's a way for people to do it. I mean, it does involve a lot of work. It's not just like you check Twitter and some guy's like, "Hey, buy this now. It's gonna be great." And you're like, "Awesome." You still have to like hold that through because being early on something is rough. Because like there's a lot of people talking shit about it because they weren't in early, or a lot of volatility when it goes up. And there's a lot to it. But I think knowing your niche and knowing where your strengths are will help you determine how you can get into something early. So it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of depends where you feel most comfortable at in crypto. And mine was not, software knowledge or anything. Mine was knowing people and recognizing patterns of people. And if their pattern was that they were really good at calling projects early, then cool. Like I'm gonna go to you for news first, look at it and see if it's something I'm interested in, and then invest. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that quite a lot of people actually use this method as well, and that does not mean, of course, doesn't mean that you follow that person's call and like they shield it, also called like write a thread about it, and then you ape into it immediately. No, right? Like it's kind of like the first level of filter, and then you look into it further on your and make your own decisions from there.
Right, because a lot of the stuff in crypto, like you said earlier, it just moves so fast, and there's so much happening. There's no way you can keep track of everything by
Mm,
yourself. There's just no
definitely.
way. It's impossible. So, you know, it's almost like using these other Twitter accounts as like a news. Well, I mean, it's exactly what Twitter is, but like a news feed, right? Of like, hey, this project is dropping, and then you go, oh, that's cool. I never heard of that. What is that? And it's like, oh, it's ETH middle layer data availability, and you're like, I don't know what that is, so I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
invest in it or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's just a nice way to get like essentially a watch list. Like
Yep.
I'm getting a watch list from people that I want to review and research on my own time.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And my next question for you will be, what is your research process or framework? So I'm sure what you mentioned earlier, it's part of the answer. And then like
hmm
maybe how do you go about afterwards?
So a good portion. So like for instance, what's like a relatively new product? So Barachain, that can be
Mm-hmm.
one because I'm super hyped on Barachain. So like my process on that and what's brought me to like why I'm so convicted in it is that it was one of those things like I heard of it again in a podcast. I think ironically, Small Caps podcast again.
All
Um,
right, nice.
and it was a mixture of like the founders just being goofy fucks, and then but also you can just tell when somebody's intelligent, right, and knows what they're talking about, and those guys sounded intelligent. So I was like, okay, so they're on a decent sized podcast for crypto. They're self-aware enough to be funny and goofy, which a lot of founders aren't. A lot of them are just too serious because a lot of guys in crypto are just like tech nerds, which again, not a bad thing, but when you hear them talk, it's just kind of dry, and you're like, all right, whatever. These guys were self-aware and confident enough to be funny. They were incredibly intelligent, knew what they were talking about, and made me interested enough to like, all right, I'm going to look into this on my own. And maybe that's part of my psych background of just knowing, you know, when people are how they act on that podcast was them being confident in self work. Because if you're confident in yourself to talk and be funny, make jokes, then you're more than likely confident in your work. And if you back it up with sounding intelligent about it, like that's a really good combo for me. Like you're smart, you're
Ah,
funny, and you're confident in what you're talking about. Like odds are you probably found a niche and you're expounding on it, right?
right.
So
Interesting. So
then I
you
just gobbled up as much as I could about them.
interesting. So like you kind of combine your knowledge of psychology into how someone presents themselves.
Yeah, yeah, because there's some people you can kind of tell when it's not confidence and it's cockiness, and sometimes that's a turnoff for me, and sometimes it's not. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that but in an instance where it was ended up being a turnoff was Do Kwon, right, with Luna. Like that ended up being a bad. Like it was good at first, and you're like, damn, this dude's got balls, right? Like he's like, I'm gonna like y'all aren't stopping me. We're gonna make this work. And then when it became evident that it wasn't going to work and the cockiness was still there, it's like, okay, that's not good.
Ah,
Um, but in terms of the Bear Chain guys, yeah, it was a like a swagger about the way they would talk. Um, like they just knew that they had something golden, right? Like they knew they were onto something. Um, So then I went back and like listened to as much podcasts as I could. I found as much Medium articles, Mirror articles. I made a Twitter list of all the Berachain related accounts that I could find, of any alts, any developers, founders, projects, etc. You name it. And I pinned that on my Twitter profile. So when I would open Twitter, that was one of the first things I would look at. And I would scroll through all the Beara stuff, and I'd be like, okay, so what's interesting here?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately didn't have the money or the capital to like get any of the bear NFTs. Didn't have enough liquid capital, I guess, because I have a lot of locked tokens.
Ah,
But
okay.
I know and knew that they were onto something. So I, as much as information as I could, and then when projects were doing betas and stuff like that, I tried to be in those and in the discords and trying to be, and that's part of being early too, in my eyes, is when you identified something, you do your damnedest to be a part of it as much as you can. Now,
Mm-hmm.
having a child and stuff, like, it's not as easy to be in stuff as often as people that don't. So I have to manage my time with that. But like, I got into a couple like the Beara games early. I got those honeycomb NFTs when a lot of people didn't. Like, I got Bearadrome NFTs from being early and being on a whitelist, and like just like stuff like that, where I got as much exposure to the ecosystem as possible. That allowed me to learn, because like when you got like whitelist and stuff, sometimes you got into like the alpha channels on the discords, right? Like, so you heard things
Yep.
and saw things before everybody else did,
Yep.
which either helps or hurts your conviction to a degree. But all it did was just solidify how cool I think everything is. And every time they would drip out new information from the Berachain account, I was like, dude, like it was just it just felt novel, right? Like, it felt like I was reading Ethereum back from 2018. Now, obviously, that's not the same thing, right? Like, to the scale level, but like the excitement I would get from reading their stuff, I'm like, this is just so cool, man. Like, none of this stuff happens right now. So that is kind of like my process, like just in a really long, drawn out rant by me. But like, identify something cool, hoover up as much information as you possibly can, make a thesis, act on it. I think is just a really good nutshell version of all that long-winded
Nice, nice. I
explanation
think,
that I just said.
yeah, that's a very good summary. And it was a bit of like a Berachain Maxi side of you coming out.
A little bit, yeah. I think it's
Right.
because they're so Cosmos related. But yeah, and they're just such cool dudes, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody that I've interacted with is super nice. But yeah, that is my number one anticipated unreleased project, 100%.
Nice, nice. Good to know. And my next question for you is like, what is your definition of a like good DeFi project? Like you mentioned, you listen to AMA's podcast and like how the founders present themselves,
Hmm.
go into Discord or so. Like, what's the definition of a good project to you?
I think I probably have a different definition than most people. I think it's a combination of having product market fit, and then also having a user base to back that up. And then, so my answer doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like founders in this, for like the definition of a good project, because in
Mm-hmm.
my eyes, you can have a good founder, you can have cool tech, you can have a good product, and you can still flop because you
Mm-hmm.
didn't get the user base. So, for instance, like, I can think of a couple projects off the top of my head that just seemed really cool, had good tech, smart people behind it, and still didn't achieve what everybody thought they would achieve.
Uh-huh.
Um, like Ren Protocol
Uh-huh.
had some super cool tech. They were, talking about dark pools, all this stuff, and then it all just kind of fizzled out. Now, part of that I think was their acquisition or whatever it was by FTX. I think kind of soured people on them. But like Ren and Bancor, BNT token, I think is what their ticker was, and then
Mm-hmm.
like even Keeper DAO, like, it was almost like they were too smart for the public, right? So like, people just didn't know how to use it effectively and didn't know what to do with it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a combo of like being really smart, good tech, but like you just didn't acquire the user base, and sometimes that just happens and shit just fails. So I think you have to have a good combo of like having a product market fit, having something that the market and people need, and then being self-aware enough to try and acquire as much user base as you can as quickly as you can, because the longer it takes you to get a big user base, the quicker like some other product is going to identify that, grab the user base, and then build the protocol. And then, what I'm saying? So it's kind of like natural selection in a way. Like, you have to really have all these things fitting for you in the exact right way at the exact right time, otherwise you'll
Uh-huh.
fail.
Right, but what about like projects with like super high yields? So like all the so-called mercenary capital moves over, like wouldn't that give like a false impression of capturing user base when they're just there to
Y-
farm and then they'll move
yes,
away to the next best farm afterwards?
100%. But I think in those scenarios you can kind of attribute that is like if you were to open it up and see that there was high yields, like your first impression now after having been through like all the ohm forks and stuff is going to be like, this is a down only token, right? Like
Mm,
the emissions are just unreal. So if you're into that, like you should be farming with like ETHUSD or something that you would already farm with anyways, and then
mm-hmm.
just sell that token into the nether regions. And then because in a way it's like the solid leaf forks, right?
Right.
Like some of those maintain sticky user base afterwards, but I think that's because they innovate past the solidly model, right? The solidly model is just meant to bootstrap
Mm-hmm.
really quickly, and then pivot. And I think like Thana and or Thana, I don't even know how
Yeah,
you would pronounce that.
I
Um,
said Tina.
yeah, and like the Kava fork, the Vera or whatever. I think a couple of like those have really high TVL and a good user base at the same time as like they're finding their product market fit, like they're building new things to keep user base and also to bring user base in, which I think is cool. So like if you can lure them in with like the high yields, but then you can innovate something to make them stay, I think that's a good fit too. Because
Mm,
like I think Thana with their fusion release or whatever concentrated liquidity stuff, I think is big, and I think it's going to keep people there. So
yeah.
like I said, it's a combo of like product market fit and user base, but it's not necessarily one before the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could do user base first as long as you have something in mind that you're building forwards, and then you actually deliver. So it's like a nice happy medium between everything. But that's a good point. Like, yeah, I mean, mercenary capital is a thing. People just come in, farm the rewards,
Yep.
dip out. So you have to be able to innovate, I think, to make people want to stay.
Right. Nice, nice. I mean, everyone has their own definition of what a good project is. Like some might go for narratives, like they just after the short term. Some go for you. So yeah, it's nice to hear what your definition is as well.
Yeah, and narratives and stuff like that is cool. I think that's a way to find if you're good at tracking narratives. I think that's another way to like quote unquote be early.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
but I don't always think that narratives last. Like for instance, for me, the ZK narrative is trash. I'm not a fan. So when it went from the Arbitrum narrative to ZK, I didn't even touch ZK for the most part. Um, actually, I didn't even bridge money over there at all.
Man.
It just seemed I don't know. It just didn't seem organic, right? Like it was just kind of like, oh well, this is done. Now we're going to go right here, and you can kind of tell because a lot of the projects that are like ZK Sync native have just come off like scammy and just not good. I think ZK as a whole is really cool tech, but like I think we're a year or two out from it mattering to people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Some people
narratives
call
is
it
a
like
good way to value.
some people call it ZK scam.
Yeah, there's I think it was like was it Blockmates? I think he was on Twitter. He was like he was talking shit to him, and it was just funny.
Yeah.
But ZK just wasn't a good narrative. But like narrative is cool, brings value. It's a good way to find stuff. But like I think that's one of those things where like you're early, you get a good position in something, you ride the narrative, you sell it when you think you've gotten close to top, leave
Mm-hmm.
leave a small moon back or whatever. And then if the narrative falls away, but the tech is still good, and you know it's still good, just the hype is gone, then you can just silently accumulate it, bring it back up to a good position or whatever, and then wait. If you think it's that good, you wait. But I don't think narrative is a nice little add-on for me, like to my definition. Like if you do the PMF user base and stuff, but then you also have a narrative driving it, I think that's a good little buffer. But if you just do narrative only, I think it is more like short-termy
Yeah, definitely.
for like profit-taking type stuff.
Definitely you have to rotate and go after the next narrative and like you have to think ahead.
Yeah, and there's some people that are really good at that. Like one of my favorite accounts of all time on Twitter is Ansem. I think he has like two. It's like Consimp and like Black Noise or whatever. I had followed him when he was like 5,000 followers. He called the Jewel Run Up, which I was in. Like he was real good on narrative trading and was real hot at picking those narratives, and it worked out super well. So like there's people that can like it's like they just have like this third eye, and they're like, and the next narrative shall be ZK Sync. and then they act on it or whatever.
Right.
So, but yeah, narratives are cool, but I think in the current state of the market, it's kind of like the AI narrative was kind of dumb. ZK
That
Sing
was
narrative's kind of dumb.
short-lived. Yeah.
Yeah,
ZK
short, and I
Sing.
think ZK Sing's going to end up short-lived too. I think some projects will break through and be cool, but I think it's not going to be what people want it to be just yet. Although if you're early and farming the yields and you're getting hella the yields on something
Uh-huh.
and you're making profit, good for you.
Right. I
Like
think some people are doing it for the airdrop as well. I mean, I did bridge some funds over in hopes of airdrop.
right. And like there's a part of me that's like I probably should do that too, like free money, yada yada. But
Yeah.
like but then in my head I'm like running the risk of like, okay, but if I find something like, oh, this is really like cool, I'll throw some money into it, and then I lose that money, like is the airdrop going to cover what I lost?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of
Maybe.
opportunity costing. Right.
Maybe. I don't know.
It
But
might.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. Like I'm big on opportunity cost, and I miss out on stuff sometimes just because of what my thesis is going forward for the
Mm-hmm.
market and like how I think the year is going to go in the next year and stuff. So it's hard for me to break away from that. So that's kind of where my head's at on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember talking about like ZK Sing with a few friends, and we were saying um like it's a bit too early for that to come out in the first half of this year. We're talking maybe like end of the year or even next year, and then suddenly we have this era out now in March, I think. Was it March or
Oh
April?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that's kind of where the people I've talked to that are hell of a lot smarter than me are like, yeah, I think ZK, like you're looking probably 2024 is where that's going
yeah,
to come into play more and be cool. And there's even some ZK stuff like coming through on Cosmos and other things too that like looks cool, but it feels just nascent, right? It just feels too soon to make an impact yet.
yeah, I know people who are actually farming there now, so it works for them. If you're after the use, I mean, sure, why not? Go ahead. I mean, whatever works for them,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah,
It,
if you got it and you're able to, hell yeah, do it up, brother.
yeah,
Get you the meals.
everyone has their own preferences. Like for yourself, maybe like ZK Sing is not a priority for you now. For myself, I not really a fan of the real world asset narrative for myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I there's a part of me that agrees, and then there's one project that I'm really interested in that I think is doing it in a cool way. But I do think that as a whole, I think the only thing that's gonna be cool with WR or RWA is like bringing T bills and like bond yields and stuff to crypto. I think would be cool to be able to access it just an easier way than traditional finance. And then there's a protocol LandX that's doing stuff with like
Right. Right.
crops.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Like commodities and stuff is cool, but anything other than that, like people are trying to do like real estate and all that shit, like I just think that's kind of silly. But
Yeah. But
I
don't get
think
me
for
wrong.
like,
Like I'm not against it. Like I just don't think that this is how it will play out. Like
oh no,
yeah.
yeah, definitely not, 100%.
Yeah. So
I think it's a thing that'll be cool to add on to everything crypto, but I don't think it's going to be like, I don't think people should prepare for it as if it's going to be like this next massive narrative
mm-hmm,
because I just
mm-hmm.
think that's kind of overdone. But yeah, I agree.
All right. So let's zoom out for a bit. I'm not sure if you do any macro thoughts, but I want to kind of ask you about your opinion or your thoughts about the markets for the rest of the year. Like we just had the Shanghai update.
So if anything, I'd fucking LARP as a macro guy. I can't even obviously pretend to know like any of what most macro people know. And honestly, Twitter is such an echo bubble that finding somebody who actually is correct with macro takes is really really hard to do. And I don't think
Uh-huh.
there's a whole lot of people that have that good of a grasp. I think we're so volatile right now in the world that it's going to be hard for anybody to pin any
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing down. But for me, because I'm kind of bearish on the US, which is ironic because I live there, but
Right.
I think we're just doing all the wrong things. And I think like especially like in terms of like how we deal with crypto and how we're dealing with just like, the treasury and monetary stuff, I think we're just kind of I don't know, we're taking a really bad stance. And it makes me more bullish for crypto and like other things too. Like I think gold is a good play and stuff like that. But if I were to hazard a guess in terms of like how crypto performs the rest of the year, I think this is probably the beginning of a bull. I know that's kind of
Oh,
a hot take to give because I think a
yeah.
lot of people are going to really disagree with that.
Yeah.
But the way I think of it is we had a whole lot of shit thrown our way with like FTX and all those just back to back, like just really bad news cycles that brought us down all the way to, whatever I think the bottom was 15K, 16K, something like that.
Around there, yeah.
And that happened like during a macro bear, right? Like that wasn't even just us. Like that was like stock markets are down, like everything's down. And for us to only go to that and then rebounded ahead of time, I think is very telling. I think that big players were more likely to buy there and think that it probably wasn't going to go lower, because like at that point it was kind of like, if we go any worse, like we're over for a while, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this is like crypto's going to be dead for years after all this. But it didn't happen that way. And that was kind of my take back then, is like, yo, if this goes any further, like we're screwed. Like this might be the end. You even had people like Kobe, who I think is probably one of the greatest Twitter accounts of all time for crypto. And he was like, yeah, I think we're done for years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, like, as much as I respect him, I was like, that's like such a hyper bearish take. I don't think it's going to happen. It was just like, when all of Twitter was screaming for lower prices, we pump type thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I making a bet, obviously, like with my own investments, that we don't go back below 15K for a while. I would say like ideal scenario is we kind of chop and range between like 23, 24K and like 37K for a couple months, and then see what happens from there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think. I think anytime Twitter starts screaming, "Oh shit, we're going lower," only for us to stop around 23 is going to be funny. But if you have any thought in your head at all that monetary policy, even globally, is going to end up not being great, then I think Bitcoin is a solid bet. And if you think that ETH is going to become what it's becoming, I think that's a solid bet. And if you even think at any point that ETH is ever going to go back to the high of 4K, doing anything right now is a smart move, because that's an instant double from where we are right now. So I think ideal scenario, like I said, is just chop and range, and which I'm cool with, because that just gives you time to like build a bigger position. But I don't think we're in a bear like everybody thinks we are. I think if we're still in it, we're at the very end and we're coming
Ooh.
through. But price action to me is not signaling that this is a bear, right? It's doing that thing where like price hits resistance and everybody's like, all right, it's pullback time, and then it pulls back a little and people are like, see, I told you, and then it just stalls, right? And then it just kind of hangs out for a bit and then it goes higher, and people are like, oh yeah, well, scam
Mm-hmm.
pump or whatever. But
Right.
I think it's just because market's showing you where demand is, and demand is going for higher.
I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer. I just want to hear your thoughts. Some might argue that we might not be going out of the bear yet. Some might say that we'll be going lower like towards the end of the year. Some are saying that it's out season. Everyone is celebrating the double-digit gains every day when you wake up,
I
right?
know.
And you see your whole portfolio is up double digits minimally right now. All the outs are
Yeah, I
flying.
think, yeah, alts are flying, and I don't know. I think people just kind of talk their own book in that way, and they don't want to see it from, the objective side of it. Is like, if it pumps, cool. If it doesn't pump, then like you should be trying to accumulate more of what you're interested in, and then on
Mm-hmm,
pumps you
mm-hmm.
should be selling, bits of it off,
Yeah.
and then buying it when it dips. Because there was somebody on Twitter who's been really killing it, and his biggest advice so far in the year, and I mean he's basically nailed every trade for the past like year and a half, and he was like, don't short. He's like, it's just, why would you do that right now? He's like, every shorters are getting caught out and have been getting caught out since like 16K. Like you might be right temporarily, but then it flies the other direction. So like his best advice was, de-risk at pumps near logical resistance areas, and on pullbacks put it back in, and just
Mm-hmm.
keep doing that over and over again. And I think that's been the better play, which is what's in my head, is like, it's more bull market-esque than it is bear market, because bear market, any pump's getting faded immediately and it's working out tremendously. But in bull markets, dumps are getting faded, right, and pumps are working
Yeah.
out fantastically. So I don't know. That's just kind of my take on it. I'm sure people probably say it's, we'll disagree or whatever, but I think people tend to forget that you're allowed to be wrong. And if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, like, okay, it is what it is. Don't
Yeah.
follow me then.
Yeah, it's
You know what I
fine.
mean? Do your own thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. No one can tell the future. Right. And is
Right.
there any interesting sector or chains or projects that you're looking at right now and trying to position yourself into that? I mean, you seem like,
Yeah.
I mean, Beara chain might be an answer. I don't, Cosmos might sound like an answer for you.
Yeah. So I think the stuff that I'm interested in ETH has already happened for the most part. I think the only thing that hasn't launched on ETH that I'm like, passively interested in is eigenlayer. Yeah, so eigenlayer I think is cool. I think data availability as a whole is going to be really cool, but eigenlayer is interesting to me. But like most of the stuff that I really enjoy about ETH, I'm already doing. Like Curve. I'm a big Curve maxi. I think Curve's great.
Mm-hmm.
I like by definition I like the Curve ecosystem, Convex and stuff. But I think if you're a big fan of the ETH ecosystem, like you should just hold ETH for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Like you can, like I have Curve and stuff because I think Curve to me is more like a stock than it is a crypto
Oh,
because it
really?
feels like owning part of a company. Word to Noah Seidman on that, or Seidman, Captain Rational, because he's a G. But it's more like feeling like you own something that's bringing you weekly income. But for projects and stuff, like if I'm not already in it right now, it would really have to like be sick, right? Like it's got to be really like attention grabbing for me to be interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just holding ETH or like wrap staked ETH and then borrowing cash against it is just my play for ETH. But Cosmos is just there's just really cool stuff happening. And again, like it could be really cool stuff and then not take off, right?
Right.
Like there's always that chance.
Yeah.
But I think Bear Chain is really sick. Um, there's a couple like privacy protocols on Cosmos that are coming out that are just like way too gigabrain for me to really understand fully. But I think privacy is still very important. I think it's going to become more important as the years goes on. Because I think that countries are going to go to those CBDC
Mm.
nonsense, and I really hate the idea of that.
Why?
So privacy, I think, is gonna be cool. The reason I'm not a big fan of that is because I think there was somebody who had, and I don't know how much of this is true, to be honest. This could all be speculation. I could be talking out my ass, but it was like China or something was like test running them, but they put like expiration dates on the money, so like you had to use the money by a certain date. But I also think having like a digital form of money attached to the government is just inherently bad, because what if like pure dystopian bullshit, like you say something they don't like and then they freeze your entire account,
Wow.
or you
Just wake up
don't
and your
pay.
account is empty.
Right, yeah, you're just like, what I do, and then you get a little alert that's like, we have emptied your account because you said that you don't like the president of the United States or whatever. And then, what I'm saying? Like just, and that could be just the farthest off fantasy land bullshit, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a chance that I just don't really feel like taking in terms of that. So I feel like privacy is a big narrative. So there's like Namada and Penumbra are both really cool. I'm a big fan of Shade Protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Carter because he's a really nice guy. And everybody that I've talked to with Cosmos is just all super intelligent. Like Shade just released their Shade Swap, and they like made up their own curve style math. Like the math behind the curve like they made up their own, like from scratch, which is just wild to me because like I'm not a math guy in the slightest, but like that's crazy. Like you can, on their swap, you can like, I think they put a picture of swapping like $25,000 worth of secret into, staked secret or a liquid derivative or whatever, and only incurring like a 0.1% slippage, which is nuts. Like it's I don't know, it's just crazy stuff to me, which I think that's really cool. There's also like Babylon, and they're trying to bring Bitcoin security to Cosmos.
Ooh.
So right now Cosmos is, the security is just by stake tokens, right? So they're trying to, and I think they're already partnered with a project where they're going to already do that, but like they're going to introduce Bitcoin security in the way that Bitcoin is secured into these other chains. So like you're secured by your staking tokens, you're secured by Bitcoin security. And then Cosmos having the interchain security stuff where you can borrow
Right.
from the hub and get security that way. And then somebody also made a mention of like, well, what if you get eigenlayer and coming over to Cosmos, and then you have a chain secured by staking token, maybe a little bit of Atom from the hub, Bitcoin security, and then your chain secured by ETH staking. Like that's just like big brain,
Yeah.
stuff to me.
I think it's very
Um,
interesting to see what they will come up with.
Very interesting. And I think the biggest pull that Cosmos has for me is how composable everything is, how every chain works together so
Mm-hmm.
seamlessly. And outside of that, you don't really get that as much. It's becoming more of a thing now, but like back in the day, like you had ETH AVAX and Solana or whatever, and it was a pain to bridge from all. Like sometimes you had to bridge 3 or 4 times just to get it over to a chain.
Yeah.
But in Cosmos, it's just like an instant send, and everything like works together. Like the liquid staking stuff they're doing is very interesting with Stride, and being able to, you have staked Atom, staked Osmo, and you can use those. together with Atom, like staked Atom and Atom, which is something that ETH has started doing too. But like that stuff's really cool. Like you're earning yield on top of your yield just by holding one of the tokens. And I think there's just a lot of really neat, interesting tech that comes out of there that people are ignoring for the most part. Like if you go on Twitter, like no big account besides like maybe one or two are really talking about Cosmos. It's just ETH. And I think people are missing a lot of the run up that's happening over there and a lot of the tech, and are going to end up coming into it too late or after, where they could have positioned themselves earlier type thing. But I'm really interested in all that. I think if you're going to keep track of anything, like you keep track of Cosmos chains, which includes like Kava and Kanto and stuff. You stack ETH, but I think you also pay attention to Solana. I think that's going to have a resurgence too.
All right, interesting. All right, and I want to touch on a slightly painful topic for you. So I remember you shared about the Arbitrum hack. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, luckily, like I said, almost any of my funds worth taking are locked up. So nothing could be taken from me really besides like the only really, what the big pain of it was my Arbitrum airdrop. That's what was taken.
Ooh,
That was
was
my
it a
biggest
sizable
L.
amount?
It was like 850 ARB tokens or something.
Uh-huh. I mean, that's all
So it
right.
was like 18K at launch or whatever it was.
Nah.
Or whatever the heck it was. There was something along those lines. It was a sizable amount where I was like, dang, that's unfortunate. And then he took like, I don't know, like 500 each of Bitcoin and ETH. So not very much. But yeah, it was just like, it's one of those things that like I just feel so dumb about it because of how long I've been in it. But it was just like I had reached out to a team member from a project. I said I was going to in like the Discord chat, reached out to him
Uh-huh.
about an issue I was having, and then I don't remember if I just wasn't paying attention, if I was dealing with my kid or whatever, and went back to it. And I found out after the fact, but there was a scammer had DM'd me with that dude's exact name, and I just didn't pay attention, and I clicked on that one instead.
So that's
So I
what
was
happened.
talking to him, yeah, and so ended up getting put onto a phishing site, and then that wallet
Shit.
being compromised. So
Yeah.
yeah, which like I said, didn't lose a whole lot, and
Mm-hmm.
have since earned back double what was lost, aside from the airdrop, if you just count the airdrop.
Nice.
Um,
Congrats.
yeah, just from like people reaching out and doing like the threading opportunities and stuff, which is really cool. So I've like managed to build something out of a bad situation. And the irony is like I ended up being able to secure a lot of the stuff that was on that old wallet. So here's I was going to make a thread about this, but I'll put it on your podcast instead.
Wow.
Tiny bit of alpha. So
Right,
if you
let's hear
find
it.
yourself in a situation where your wall's compromised, which people have like said like, oh, I don't want to lock up tokens, like I just think that's dumb or whatever. So like my Velodrome, my Thana, I was able to transfer because technically it's an NFT, quote unquote, the position, right? It's a VE NFT, was able to transfer them to the other wallet, and the hacker didn't know. So I was able to save a lot more than what I thought I was going to be able to because of that one fact.
Wait, so he only took the liquid tokens and he didn't
Only
bother
took
checking your
liquid tokens.
NFTs?
Nope. He didn't take. So I had like, I had my Bearadrome NFTs. I had like, I
Oh,
probably
damn.
got about 13 of those NFTs out. So he didn't. It wasn't using a bot. He must have been doing this solo. But the guy managed to steal like, 130K worth of money from other people too.
Ooh.
So I imagine if he was doing that all by hand, because I think the dude's since given up. Because I still have like, my locked curve and some other locked tokens that I'm like getting revenue from that I'll put money over. I'll take the rewards, send it back to the new
Uh-huh.
wallet, and
Right.
then take my gas tokens back because the
Right.
guy can't transfer the locked tokens, so I just
Right.
keep going back. It's like a mini paycheck.
I was gonna say like
So
he's not a
yeah,
very smart hacker, I guess.
no,
Oh, a smart scammer.
no, which makes me feel even dumber. I was like, dang, that's just not a good look for me. But I mean, like I said, it wasn't as painful because like what was taken wasn't mine. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I didn't realize the profit of the Arbitrum airdrop, so it wasn't I couldn't be mad at it. On top of it being my own
Nah,
fault.
but still, it could have been a little boost to your portfolio,
Yeah, no, it would have been great. It would have been fantastic. But
right?
so that was one of the things that I struggled with when I used to trade is like prior portfolio balance and thinking about what I had instead of what I
Mm-hmm.
have now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when this happened, I was like, well, I'm just going to have to operate as if this is a whole new thing. Like I'm just going to have to. So it was kind of like refreshing to a degree and reinvigorating to kind of like start anew and figure out what I wanted to do now going forward with what I have currently. So that was kind of nice. It was kind of like a reinvigoration moment.
Right.
Um, and trying to take as much good from that bad as I could. But shout out to Chinchilla for being super nice and helping me out that day. And then not gonna make it from DeFi Llama. He
Mm.
was super nice. He DM'd me on Discord, walked me through everything, figured out where the origination of the hack was from because I didn't know initially
Wow.
because the guy had hacked me the day before the
From
day
which
before the
server?
article.
Could you share which server?
Blah, 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 blah. It was the Synthetics Discord server.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, and it was the same name. And what I should have checked was the date joined, and it just didn't occur to me because I thought I was talking to the same person.
Mm. Right.
Like I said, it was
Njema
just one
is
of those
so
things where like,
nice. Sorry.
right, yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, and it was just more of like, and somebody had made a post about this like a couple weeks after. I was like, damn, I wish I'd known that ahead of time. But it was like, don't do anything regarding funds if your intention's not fully on it. So
Mm.
like my intention wasn't fully on what I was talking about. It was with my kid or it was with
Right,
whatever.
right.
And, just kind of one thing led to another about it. Um, but good thing came out of it. As far as I'm concerned, I've been made whole.
Yeah.
Um, so, it,
Yeah. Yeah. I
past it now.
think
But yeah, it sucks.
nice. Usually I'm not a big fan of locking tokens up, but I think this is a very lucky thing for you in a sense.
Yeah, this
Right.
was like the one time where I was like, dang, this worked out really well.
Right.
Because now, like, now I don't really have the funds there to continuously relock Curve or to relock my liquid driver or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like I just wait until they vest and then I take those back again and I just reap the
Right.
rewards in the meantime.
Yeah.
So if
Right.
you're out there and you do have locked tokens, the VE NFT ones are kind of a nice failsafe in a way, as long as the hacker doesn't know about it. But you
Yeah.
can transfer those. That was
Right.
like I was like, when I found it out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this
Right.
right now.
Yeah. Check your NFTs page.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. If you're a hacker, go fuck yourself.
Shit, we might have just like taught the hacker how to improve on his scams.
Yeah, you can remove this. You just take out that whole section.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe let's hear some of your goals next. Can be for your account, can be for your portfolio, anything.
Um, I don't really have like a monetary value in mind. I mean, I do, right? Like, I'd like to get back to like um bull market highs again. That'd be
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Just without the lock tokens, because that was what killed me. Then, ironically, um, but I think short term, um, for crypto would probably just be to keep doing what I'm doing and organically growing the account. Um, because I think in terms of like how like for like metrically like numbers like how my threads do is a lot higher than what they should be. I think for like my
Really?
follower account. Sometimes, yeah, like for me, like on some of my bigger threads, like they've gone to like 50K views or 60K views and stuff, and that's I have 2,000 followers, so that's
Mm-hmm.
like 30x the
Nice.
views. So it's obviously coming from outside sources and whatever, but like I don't I usually like average a higher view count than I would think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's other accounts that are like lower followers that are blowing me out of the water. Very possible.
I don't even know what's the average like view
I don't
count
either.
they were supposed to get for like per follower or something.
Yeah, I have no idea. All I know is like for the most part on any like paid thread I do or like okay, so for most of the paid ones, it's usually like a rough like 10K to 15K view count.
Mm-hmm.
After like they'll run up to that and kind of stay there. Some of my other ones where it's like a more personal thing or more like philosophical thread or whatever, 30 to
Oh,
50.
right, right. I think this is
Um,
something very interesting that I noticed as well, like recently. Like when I posted the second episode right with CJ,
mhm.
then on I think it was on the same day or the day after that I posted like a post with like two quotes that I came across that I thought was interesting. And if I'm not wrong, I think the one of the quotes actually had a higher reach than the second episode, sadly.
Right. And it makes me wonder if like that's like a Twitter algo thing or something. Like,
I
does it
don't know,
just
man.
reach more people if it's like, uh, philosophical nonsense? But it does seem to be that way. Like some of the stuff where I just kind of like just rant and just do like just talk like as a person and not as like a marketer or
Mm-hmm.
whatever seems to do better than the ones where I market.
Maybe people just
But I
prefer to
think,
see like realness instead.
yeah, I mean I think that's part of it. Like crypto is so digitalized. Like sometimes I think people forget like what is happening around them as a whole. And since being a dad and a father and stuff like that makes me think of
Uh-huh.
things differently and from a different perspective. Um, and so sometimes it's just something I feel like I have to say, and I'm like, well, fuck it, I have a Twitter account. I guess I'll just put it on there,
Yeah.
and then it resonates with people, which I think is cool. And I think that's what's made I think you can have like 15, 20K followers or whatever, but only have like 1,000 of them that really pay attention to you.
Right.
And I think me having only 2,000 or whatever the number is, I feel like there's a higher amount of people that just comment on stuff and like it just because they see it and they like it than it is if it was just like, I were to post airdrop threads or whatever
Right.
and really try and like game my followers, like my follower count or whatever.
Yeah. It's
Um,
just more genuine.
yeah, and I think that's a good thing. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and it's not necessarily a bad thing to do airdrop threads and stuff, whatever, because I'm sure they're getting great deals. Like you're definitely making more money than me. Like kudos. But um,
No.
it's one of those things where it's like I don't want to be a salesman in real life either. Like I've done
Yeah.
that before. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to do it on Twitter. So like when I get paid to do projects and stuff, it's just like I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna write how I write it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna try and sell your product. Like it's just gonna be information. And they're like, okay, that's cool. And then they leave it at that. And so then that's what I do. Um, but yeah, I think short term is just growing what I have there, and then like medium and long term is just gonna be like my thesis and stuff, and just
Mm-hmm.
continuously growing what I like my account balance based off of what I want to accumulate going forward.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
and that's just kind of like where I'm at. I don't really have any other like super interesting goals aside from like raising my kid and like
That's an awesome
try.
goal. What are you talking about?
I mean, it's a pretty good goal, I won't lie. Or like, I started a mini garden in the backyard, just like stupid stuff that like I have the
Ah,
time and ability to
nice.
do that just sounds fun to me. So like, I'm just doing like other stuff like that.
That's so nice to have a nice little garden, backyard.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because like
that's
I
kind of
don't have
like,
that here, not in Singapore.
no,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
honestly like, we're kind of like, we have like our hot summers and, we have our cold winters and mild milds and blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Um, So I have like the opportunity to do so,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
nice.
think, and honestly, I don't even know if it's working. Like I planted shit like a couple weeks ago. I have no idea if there's anything growing in there. I'll be honest with
Yeah,
you. I don't
it's
know when to
okay.
take it out. I don't know when to check. I don't know if I should pull it out. Like I don't know. I'm just
You
going
fuck
with it.
around and find out.
So yeah, no, that my garden is the exact definition of fucking around and find out.
Right, right. Nice, nice. Yeah, but down here it's just hot like all year round. You get rain sometimes. It's either super hot or it's raining. That's all.
Hot and sticky. I bet.
Yeah, yeah. Especially like now. It's super hot right this period right now.
Oh, I
But
bet it's
yeah,
like 66 here, so
I
I'm
don't know.
feeling
It's
good on that.
like 30 degrees Celsius or something. I don't know how much is
I'll
that
be
in
honest. I don't even know the
Fahrenheit.
conversion there.
Me too. Yeah,
It's fine. It's probably hot.
right.
I'm gonna assume
So
hot.
super hot, right? And you mentioned like talk about like taking care of a kid, your garden. Let's hear about your typical day. How's your typical day like? Are you still working or like are you doing this full time now?
So I was essentially I when my son was born, prior to that, I was working in a pet store. So my buddy owned, like, he was a general manager, and he brought me on as just like one of his other managers. So I was like second in command, and most of that was just because like it was fun to just hang out with my buddy and just do work or whatever. But that's never been my goal. I don't. It sounds dumb to say, but like I don't like working in the traditional sense. Like I don't like having a boss necessarily. I don't like being told to do like arbitrary bullshit that just seems stupid. Like just generic company stuff. Like it's just not for me. So I always had like entrepreneurial mindset,
Nice.
and so that's why I'm doing this right now. But prior to that, so my son was born, and I quit my job because I wanted to be there to take care of my kid. I didn't really want to have like a babysitter or whatever. So wife is a teacher, so she went back to teach after we had him in the summer. And she had the
Mm-hmm.
summer off because she's a teacher, and then she was able to go back. So I've just been stay-at-home dadding.
Nice. Is it
And
fun?
a lot of yeah, so it's really hard at first. Like, don't let anybody tell you having a job's easy because it's not. Because the sleep deprivation is unreal.
Shit.
Unless you have one of those freak children that like sleeps all night from like 3 months on, in which case go play the lottery every fucking day because you'll win. Um, but yeah, so I mean, you're sleeping like 2 hours a day, bro. It's awful. But
Shit.
now I mean, he's getting his own personality. He's, you know, crawling around, trying to walk. He's babbling. Like it's definitely a lot. It's a lot. It is hard in its own sense because like now he's a danger to himself with literally every movement he makes. Because like
Ah,
just they go towards
yep. You
light
better keep an eye on him
light
all the
sockets.
time.
Yeah, basically. So a lot of my day is just filled with walking around making sure he doesn't kill himself. Um,
That's a
but
funny way to put
so
it.
like yeah, I mean because he has no idea what he's doing. He's just a baby. He's unsure. Um, but so like typical day, like right now, because this is like threading right now is like my full time thing. So I'm threading, I'm doing ghost writing,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's doing enough to where like I'm okay. And during the bull market, I took enough out to do some good stuff too. Um, but most of those funds were drained after the child was born, just because there's so much in America. There's so many fucking bills and fees and things you got to buy and other things to try and take care of that you don't that I didn't really it didn't really occur to me when I didn't have a supplemental income from a job to help um you know help out with that. But so like for instance, uh during the week I'll wake up. So I like because he doesn't sleep in a crib. This child hates cribs. You put him in a crib,
Ooh.
he's just like he doesn't do it. So he's like slept on us throughout his entire life. Um, so because I stay up late with my wife and I don't have a job in quote unquote sense, the way she does have to go to work, I'll
Uh-huh.
keep him for a little bit, and then he'll wake up in the night at some point. He'll go up to her on the bed, and then I'll get so that way like she gets some uninterrupted sleep for a little bit, and then he goes up to her, and then I'll get some uninterrupted sleep for a little bit, and then she leaves at 5 a.m. I take the kid. Sometimes I'll fall back asleep. Sometimes I don't. Um, and so it's just kind of like watching TV and stuff, scrolling on Twitter, shit posting or whatever while he's asleep. Wake up, take care of the kid. Maybe I'll take him on a walk around the neighborhood. And most of the time spent until my wife comes home is just with him, right? Feeding him, changing him, playing with him, stuff like that. And then she gets home, and then that's when, like, if I have work to do or threads to knock out, all right, I'm knocking those out now. And so it's made me really efficient with my time,
Ah,
um, to where, like, you know, they may give me a thread and I'll have it, they may want it done in a week, but I'll have it done that day
nice.
if I get the chance to it, like, or the majority of it done. Um, so it's maybe just really buckle down and be efficient with my time there. But yeah, I mean, then that's it. And then I just, hang out with them until the night comes and then process restarts.
Ah, right,
So
right.
I thread when I can and talk to people when I can. And I feel like I'm fairly responsive for the most part. There's gaps where like I might miss an hour or two because like I take a
Mm-hmm.
nap with them or whatever. Um,
Must be
but
nice.
like, yeah, in a way, but sometimes if you go to bed at like 10 and then you wake up at 2,
Oh
and then you
shit.
wake up at 5, and then you wake up at 7 because you took a nap. Like your sleep's so broken that even though you get enough hours of the day of sleep, it
Right.
doesn't feel like you got enough.
It's just like multiple naps throughout the day and the nights.
Yeah, it's
Right.
it's it's brutal. But I've gotten so used to it, and I'm so hyped up on caffeine that I just move on. I live with it. But
Doesn't sound like a good
uh,
thing though.
yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely not bad. Like I play with my dog. She plays with him. Take her outside. Just generic like American family home life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, on top of just being like a super crypto native degen.
Right. And I wanna actually ask, like, do you have any hobbies? But seems like I don't know, you can still share, but seems like you have a lot of time spent around your kid right now. Like maybe last time, yeah, some hobbies. What are you interested in
Yeah,
outside of
I'm a
crypto, of course? Ooh,
big gamer.
what do you
Love
play?
video games. Um, right. So I used to be like real big into multiplayer games. So I loved Call of Duty. I did like some semi-pro in Gears of War. Did a little bit of semi-pro in COD. Um, and then the older I've gotten, the more I realize that I'm just not as cracked out as these like Adderall fueled 11-year-olds, and my fingers just do not. They just can't keep up. So I don't play as many like shooters and stuff anymore. So I'm more into like story games, so like God of War,
Ah,
the
okay,
Fallout
nice.
series, like my favorite.
Nice.
Um, Actually, going back and like replaying Fallout New Vegas has been a real treat because that's one of my favorite games of all time. So like a lot of like RPG story games where like I can play it, and then if my kid acts up or starts crying or is tired or whatever, I can pause it. You know what I mean? Like
Right, yeah.
I hated not being able to pause when I was playing a multiplayer game. So that I realized very quickly that I just can't play those with a kid.
Right. You
So
gotta call your kid to wait. Hold on. Wait until I kill that
right,
guy.
yeah, yeah. So that I mean, I used to be a big reader, um, but I find that playing games like RPGs and stuff is a really nice way to wind down and relax on the days that I don't have my kid. Like when
Mm-hmm.
his grandparents take him and stuff, it's a nice way for me to just chill and maybe talk with some buddies and stuff because we're all almost in our 30s and they're working and maybe they have families and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I don't get to read as much, um, but I'm looking forward to the time when he's older and I can get some reading in because I really like the Dune series. I need to reread Game of Thrones. I
Ooh.
like reading Star Wars books. Um, Big like fantasy guy, but also I like reading stories about the stock market and like real time events. One of the ones actually, I think Lynn was like reached out to me on a Twitter thread and like name your favorite book you read recently, and one of them was like Blood and Oil, and it was about like Saudi princes and like their wealth creation and stuff like that. That I find interesting, but if it's not that, like super fantasy guy, like big Star Wars guy. I like watching all Star Wars shows. So
Nice,
like I have my
nice.
TV shows that I watch, and then I'll have my games that I so like shows, games, books. If you were to just sum it up, that's a
Right,
pretty
right.
good.
I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
pretty
like my
good.
hobby.
That's pretty chill, I guess. Reading.
Yeah,
I like reading too.
used to be a sports guy, so I used to
Ooh.
play a lot of sports, but like not anymore. Like I watch sports. Like I'm a big football fan for everybody that's not American. Um, and I like watching baseball. So
Nice, nice.
yeah,
Somehow Lin gets mentioned every episode so far. I don't know how, dude. Like everyone just keeps
Lynn's goaded.
mentioning Lin.
She's so nice. She has helped me out so much in the past like month and a half, and she is just genuinely like the sweetest person.
Right.
Um, like just to talk to. She's very smart, knows exactly what she's doing, um, and is very kind. So shout out Lynn. She's the goat.
Nice. I totally agree. Totally.
Yeah, super
Right.
nice. She's one of the like I've met a lot of genuine people in crypto that have been very welcoming, and she's definitely at near the top of the list, along with Rect and Rect Diomedes and Jincho.
Oh,
Those are all super
right.
nice people.
Right is super cool. Right,
Yes,
and
very nice
we've
guys.
been chatting for like about an hour and a half now. Now let's
Oh yeah,
wrap
shit,
this
wrap
up.
that up for you, Chief.
Yeah, so um yeah, no worries. Let's go with the biggest lesson or the takeaway from crypto for you.
um, Move slow and with conviction.
Ooh, short and
I
sweet.
think I think people move way too quick, and I'm guilty of that. Trying to pivot and catch every using spare money, trying to catch everything that's out there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just so much easier. and I've done so much better if I'm just like, okay, I want Bitcoin, ETH, Atom, and then make a list of alts that I want, and then just focusing on only getting those. And it just makes life so much easier. Like I don't have to check my account balance every fucking day. Like I just can go on there for a couple minutes here and there, make some trades, make some compounding, and then be done with it and go live life, which I think is like the whole point of crypto.
Nice, very nice. I like your quote. Very short and sweet. And
Yeah,
anything else that you
think
want
it's
to
easy.
add? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, like it's just an easy, quick thing that I think everybody can get simple takeaway from. Just move
Yeah,
slow.
definitely. I
Easier
think
said than done, but
everyone
easier to
is
work on.
guilty here. I want to ape into some random shit coins in hopes of the 100x, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
All right, all right. Anything else that you want to add on that we have not touched on that you might want to include into this?
I don't think so. Aside
No.
from like just people just need to be more chill on Twitter. People just need to be nice. It's that thing the other day with Moki just sent me onto a rampage. So I think people just need to like.
Mochi?
You're always going to get people like that. Yeah, Mochi. Yeah, we're where I was talking about. People just need to be nicer
Yeah,
and
I saw that
just
tweet.
accept like like the quickest thing I can make it so this doesn't go any longer than this is like people just need to understand that like threaders are marketers. We are information vehicles. My job is not to make you want to buy anything. My job is to go, hey, this coin wanted some publicity. Here's what they're doing. Here's what they're trying to do. Here's their token. Here's their app. Blah, 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 blah. There you go. I'm not trying to make somebody buy nothing. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm barely my own advisor. But I think people think that we are more than what we are. Like we're at the basis form, we are just marketer. We're like a walking typing billboard for protocols.
I think that's very
So
well
people I
said.
think just need to treat us as that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree more in the sense of marketers in this like digital marketing in a sense. Yeah.
Yes, I think that is exactly what it is, and that's all I've ever said. That in my when I talk to people like, what do you do for a living? I say I'm a digital marketer on Twitter, or like I'm a
Nice.
content creator on Twitter, because that's what it
No,
is. I'm not doing anything but just word vomiting the things they want me to talk about in my own way to make it interesting, and then letting people read and make decisions on it.
right, right. So I'm gonna make this a thing where you have to give me names of who else that you would like come on to this podcast. Anyone in
Okay.
mind? Max three. Let's keep it at three max.
3 max. Okay, I think Rect would be a really good one
Rec
because
Muses.
yeah, he's got his hands in so many pies and he just does everything so efficiently that I think it would be fascinating to hear like what his daily routine is. Man's got like a newsletter, he's jacked, he's on it. Like I just like he's dude's interesting. Would be super cool to see what he does.
Right, I agree.
Um I think if you can get him, which it might honestly be pretty difficult, but it'd be very interesting if you could get crypto yield info.
Ooh, okay.
I know he's got a locked account, but for the most part, I think he lets people. I think he like opens it every once in a while. But the man is like the OG yield farmer. Like he is on top of everything before everybody else. And I'm sure he's been rugged more times than he would love to count. But he always seems to have really awesome takes on everything, and would be super cool to hear him if he were to talk. He may not, but I think he'd be a super informative listen.
Mm-hmm.
And last one, Lynn would be fun. I'd be interested to hear uh more Lynnisms.
I was hoping that
I
you
think
would
that'd be
not say
cool.
Lin.
Okay, I'll say a different then. Hold on, I'll say a
No,
different
no,
then.
it's alright, it's alright. No, it's fine.
Okay,
We'll keep Lin there. Yeah,
I'm,
this like,
I'll message her. I'll be like, hey, get on this.
dude, we have been trying. Actually, I reached out to her already lah, because she has been basically she's being nominated every fucking episode. I should ban
Yeah, I can
her.
imagine.
I should ban her name from coming up next.
When you tell people like, all right, I want you to give me 3 names, don't include Lynn.
Yeah, you can't
Include
mention
anybody
Lin
else.
at all in the entire hour or so.
You could do that. That'd be funny.
Right.
She'd get a
Okay.
kick out of it.
Yeah, man, it's fun, right? So thank you so much for your time, man. It's been really nice to hear your stories, your experience as well. And thank you for my listeners. It's a really long episode, 1 hour, 30 minutes or so.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
Let
anything else that you want to
me
say?
were vomiting. No, man, I just thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, it's cool to like I think the way you're doing it is really really neat and you're getting a lot of different exposure even with just your first two guys.
Oh, thank you.
And it's really cool to hear like everybody's perspective. And
Yep.
it's not even like it's massive Twitter accounts. Like I'm easily the lowest, but it's people that
Nah.
I think people be interested to hear from. That's not like the Kobe, the Ledgers, the Gainsies of the world. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think this is really neat. You're doing a great job. So thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
having me. This was
much. No,
a
thank you so
blast.
much for coming. I think it's really like this is why I started, right? Just to get a little personal touch with people, get to know people a little bit more. So which is the whole point. Like for example, you mentioned like Red Mule Dares, right? Like no one knows what he does. He's so mysterious. Like I kind of want to
He
know him a
is
little
so
bit more.
mysterious. Yeah,
Right. So
tell
like
the
that's the
man to
whole
bring
point of
down the
this.
mystery.
Right. All right.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you so
it's great, man.
much.
Thank you.
I will link your Twitter down below in the description box for those on YouTube and on Spotify as well, and also in the Twitter, so you can check you out. And thank you guys for listening. Bye bye.
Cheers.